Hello and welcome to the SciFirst MovieTalk episode. So, in this episode, I will be discussing Disney's 2000 animated classic, The Emperor's New Groove, watched as part of Family Film Night. So, this is Disney's 40th animated classic, depending on your take on what constitutes such a classic, I believe. I am still working on an episode to explain what I mean on my Disney reviews with regards to the classics kind of numbering systems. And so do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already to catch that episode as soon as it's released. It's just taking me a little bit of a time, that's all, to get kind of the effect that I want overall. But anywho, so this movie, it does actually come from a time when Disney were perhaps kind of churning out films that weren't quite as remarkable and profitable as those they produced in the early 1990s. Not quite capturing the magic of the likes of Aladdin, The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and of course, The Lion King. I don't think it actually did too well at the box office during its theatrical release. I do remember that I think it was a bit of a flop. But for me, it's probably a little bit of an underrated gem. Because, put it simply, it is a very, very funny film. Light-hearted and very tongue-in-cheek. I think since its original release, it has actually gathered a little bit more momentum in the home media market. And it is actually easy to see why. Perhaps it was kind of just simply ahead of its time, perhaps. At a time when many people expected a more classic Disney tale to be told. So, the movie sees us introduced to Emperor Cusco, as voiced by David Spade. A young, selfish, egotistical, spoiled, demanding and unforgiving emperor, paying no attention to the needs of others in any way. In fact, the movie is actually narrated and introduced by Cusco himself. It's almost done from his point of view. Kind of further reinforcing his need for everything to be about and focused on him. In fact, he is the only one with a song in the whole film. His own theme song, in fact, used to introduce him and the movie as part of an opening scene, sung by the theme song guy, which is none other than Mr. Tom Jones himself. Anywho, we then meet a kind-hearted villager, Pasha. Pasha, as voiced by the ever-brilliant John Goodman, who has been called to meet with Cusco at the palace. The reason, you might ask? Because Cusco wants to build Cuscotopia, a summer hangout and water park, just for himself, right on the hilltop where Pasha lives, with his family. And basically Cusco, he wants to know which side of the hilltop gets the most sun. However, unbeknownst to Cusco, his royal advisor, Yasme, played by Eartha Kitt, whose voice, I must say, does actually fit the role perfectly. She has other plans for Cusco, namely to have him killed so that she can take his place. Now, Yasme, goodness knows how old she is. You could probably say she was some kind of witch, perhaps. It's insinuated, anyway, by the fact that she can concoct potions and that can turn you into other things such as animals, but she calls it her lab. And so perhaps somewhere between a witch and a scientist? At the very least, you could probably say that she was an alchemist. At that rate, at least. We'll go with that. I'll go with that. Yasme opts to kill Cusco with poison, but fails to look at the label correctly and ends up turning him into a llama instead. She's assisted by the ever-brilliant Kronk, who appears to be 2 bits short of a pack, but don't be fooled. He's actually quite intelligent and quite sensitive as a character. He is sent to kill Cusco, but just can't do it. It's not in his nature, and ironically, Cusco, as a llama, don't forget, now ends up hitching a ride to Pasha's village on his car, unbeknownst to Pasha. So, Kronk's not your typical henchman at all. This one's, in fact, quite lovable. That much so that they actually made a straight-to-video sequel, Kronk's New Groove. So he even got to star in his own movie in the end, because he was just an absolutely fantastic character. He is actually voiced by Patrick Warburton, the guy who actually voices Joe Swanson out of The Family Guy, amongst many other things, including, I believe, if I'm right, the intro guy into the Soaring Above California ride at Disney California Adventure theme park in Anaheim, Los Angeles. Just a quirky thing, I know, as I've actually been on the ride, and very good, by the way. Great to see all of the Californian sights without actually leaving your seat. Yeah, pretty good. Anywho, I do digress. Once Cusco discovers he is a llama, he orders Pasha to take him back to the palace. Something Pasha will only do if Cusco promises not to build his holiday getaway right on Pasha's hill. Cusco marches off on his own, but basically comes into perilous danger. Soon comes into perilous danger in the jungle. That's what I wanted to say. Luckily, the kind-hearted Pasha wasn't able to see Cusco go it alone, and so basically comes to his rescue. They then embark on a thrilling adventure back to the palace, involving a daring game of cat and mouse with Yasma and Kronk, usually with hilarious consequences, leading to a fantastically funny and fantastic grand finale, involving a number of Yasma's transformation potions. It is superb. So, that actually took quite a while longer than I thought it was going to do to discuss the film. Normally shorter these days, but anyway. So, the film is quite a mix of styles and is done in quite an abstract kind of way, with a real upbeat tempo. It's certainly its own standout movie, but you can tell there's elements of the comedic style of Aladdin and Hercules kind of thrown into the mix, kind of in an attempt, I would imagine, to recreate the magic of those two movies. Well, Aladdin, at least. In my opinion, it is actually fairly underappreciated. It's underappreciated comedy gold, to be quite fair, from beginning to end. Even the villain is funny. It's certainly not your typical Disney for its time, not at all. In no way is this meant to be taken seriously. Every time I watch this, I find another joke to laugh at. I really do. However, saying that, there are times it felt like the comedy overshadowed the emotional aspects of the film. Like when Pasha is upset about losing his home to Cusco, Cusco makes it all about him, as he would do, and basically turns what could have been a heartfelt moment for Pasha into just another comedic moment, which I feel kind of wasn't necessary. But then, like I said, it just goes to show just how selfish Cusco is. Every actor in the movie is simply perfect for the role, in my opinion, in the movie, with some absolutely brilliant voiceover performances, which do reinforce how simply brilliant the characters in this movie actually are. There's, of course, Pasha, who puts everybody else's needs above his own, even if this goes against his better judgment. Basically, like following Cusco into the jungle. Cusco is excellent too, being the one character that you really love to hate. The chemistry between Pasha and Cusco is a treat to watch, and the bond that they create through the journey and the adversity that they face on the way back to the palace basically creates a friendship so strong that by the end they triumph over everything and ultimately become neighbours. Pure Disney gold. The friendship that starts to form is seeded in one of my absolutely favourite scenes, which sees Pasha and Cusco arguing after falling through a wooden bridge. Now, even though we see Cusco for what he truly is in that scene at the moment, Pasha is still concerned for him when he too falls through the bridge. In the end, Cusco ends up saving Pasha's life. And it is at this point we realise that Cusco is changing for the better, even though he suggests it's a one-time deal. There's a great family dynamic between Pasha, his wife, Chica, as voiced by Wendy Malick, and their children, Chica and Tipo, as voiced by Kellyanne Kelso and Eli Russell, Lynette's respectively. Eli Russell Lynette's respectively, that's it. Which adds to the emotion when we learn that they all may lose their home. Our love for his family is heightened by the comedy value that they add when the children slow down Kronk and Yasme through covering them in feathers, glue, and other assortments in a real Home Alone moment. But, as touched on earlier for me, the best character of all has got to be Kronk. He's just absolutely lovable. And yeah, as much as he seems a bit not all there, he actually has some hidden talents. He's quite a good multitasker, as we see in one scene when he takes over the cooking in their kind of equivalent of a diner, or a greasy spoon, perhaps. And in this, we also see that he's quite a good cook. And he can also talk to squirrels. It's through his own kind-heartedness that Cusco escapes being killed, which ultimately leads Cusco having a major change of heart through the friendship that develops with Pasha. However, for me, the way that Kronk's character was kind of presented in the final scenes was a little disappointing after seeing him kind of develop throughout the film. Basically, because given the way that the film highlights his love for cooking, numerous times, in fact, you would have thought that this would have been something that they picked up on and kind of made it, and ended up making him use those talents at the end of the film, perhaps. But no, in the end, he becomes a scout leader, which there's nothing wrong with that. You can talk to squirrels. Now, don't get me wrong. Again, there's nothing wrong with being a scout leader. But perhaps here, they focus too much on the comedy elements, again, rather than showing his true potential, is all I'm really trying to say. I do believe that the movie was actually originally going to be a musical-style Disney called Kingdom of the Sun. And it was kind of going to include music written by Sting. I think it did all kind of fall through, and instead we ended up with The Emperor's New Groove, which in the end was a substantially different movie to the original construct of Kingdom of the Sun, which from what I understand was going to be quite the epic. From what I've kind of read, it did sound like it was going to be an interesting concept, potentially kind of reviving the Disney heyday that had now since passed, perhaps being the kind of grand overture that everybody hoped it would be. Well, we're never going to know, I don't think. But we did end up with an excellent comedy, with some great themes of friendship, family, and self-development. Of course, I am not sure if the original filmmakers would have agreed. The Emperor's New Groove basically did away with most of Sting's songs as written for the Kingdom of the Sun, and left basically the one at the start as sung by Tom Jones, and the one at the end as sung by Sting himself. But otherwise, there aren't any other songs in this movie. It's not one of those Disneys at all. So, overall, upon reflection, the comedy, the movie is quite a comedy gem, in my opinion, at the very least for a Disney, with some great characters that are perfectly matched to the actors lending the voices to the roles. It's a fantastic film. Certainly, it is worth a watch. This film is guaranteed to entertain the whole family with its real light-hearted and abstract style. So, that brings me to the end of this episode. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like. Please do hit that subscribe button for more movie reviews, trailer reactions, and other movie-related content. Loved having you here at SciFirst MovieTalk. We'd love to have you back. Certainly to watch some more of the episodes that we have. There's lots of things up and coming. But yes, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.